Good evening, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Thursday, January the 28th, 2016. Good to have you all here for our second of three shows this week. Uh, my apologies for the late start here. I could not seem to get this. Hopefully, you don't notice a lag here on screen here, but I've been having some issues with the internet tonight. Everything seems to be running incredibly slow, so my apologies for the late start. Good to have you all here for our second of three shows this week. This In the Spotlight 411 show coming at you here on this Thursday night for our entertainment show this week. So we got our usual kind of entertainment-focused features for you. We got TV highlights, In the Spotlight TV highlights of the week. We got Box Office Beat, a couple entertainment things we're going to talk about. I only mentioned one of them in the show description. That was, of course, the overhaul of the Academy. What's going on in response to the controversy surrounding the lack of minorities as far as the nominations goes for the Academy Awards this year. We'll talk about that. There's a couple other things we'll talk about too. I didn't want to fill the show description up with things we may or may not talk about. That's why I only put the one topic in there, but there'll be other things we discuss tonight as well. So, all right. So before we get going, as always, I want to remind you all the ways which you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411, and please remember to use the hashtags, either hashtag itspotlight411 or hashtag ITS5 to represent our 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and make sure you like our fan page upon finding it. Let me see here. I got my little notes here, which you could tell that I'm real rattled by the fact that it took forever to get this show up and running tonight because I don't even have my notes in front of me. All right, so here's the deal. As I said, entertainment show tonight. Tomorrow, our third and final show of this week will be our final Football Blitz show, In the Spotlight Football Blitz show for this season. So tomorrow will be the final Football Blitz show, football focused show. Obviously, we'll look back at last week's championship weekend games, look ahead to the Super Bowl, give a brief preview of the Super Bowl, and that will be it. It will be a pretty short football show, but it will be our final Football Blitz show for this season. And then, as I said, we will do a little bit of a Super Bowl kind of preview again on Tuesday's primetime show. We usually do our usual sports stuff. And then we'll obviously talk about the fallout from the Super Bowl, the aftermath of the Super Bowl on the following Tuesday sports show. Because obviously, and again, that's just because, I know some people. All right, my co-host needs to be invited again. I apologize for that. That's only because some people, I know not everybody watches the Football Blitz or listens to the Football Blitz. I know some people that watch us in prime time don't, watch it, and I know that some people that watch Football Blitz don't watch us at night. So this way we're covering both our bases and, continuity, all that jazz. So, and then, for our Football Blitz fans, they want more Super Bowl preview, more Super Bowl content, and the Tuesday night primetime show over the next couple of weeks is going to be their best way to get it. So we'll be doing some Super Bowl stuff on Tuesday, some Super Bowl stuff the week after as well. And, of course, that'll be the end of the NFL season. And obviously, unless anything big comes up in the offseason, we won't really be talking too much about that. So again, tomorrow, the last Football Blitz show for this season. Don't ask me if it's going to be back next year. I don't even want to deal with that till we get to about maybe August. So whatever. I think it will be, but we'll see. My co-host, Mike, is in the spotlight. There you go, Mike. How you doing?
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous, darling. Fabulous.
By the way,
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm on my iPhone because I don't know, for whatever reason, Windows 10 updated last night.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I've been rejecting that for a while. I've heard some horrible things about that.
I can tell you right now, it turned my computer into a brick for the first couple days. And then I will say this though. The Windows help team on Twitter are absolutely fabulous.
Oh, good.
They are extraordinarily helpful. Windows 10 sucks ass. Hold off for as long as you can. I made the mistake. Learn from me.
I've been getting those since I think maybe July or something like that. I've been getting every couple weeks I'll get a little thing. Oh, I upgraded to Windows 10. I'm like, and the first couple of times, I think the first couple of months I resisted just because I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? It's a new program. It's going to be glitches. Then around September, I started being tempted. It's like, maybe I will. And then I said, you know what? No, let me look into this a little bit more. And I made a couple calls and that, because I know some people that, I trust for like tech stuff and that. And I'm not talking about Jeff Tech. I'm talking about other people. I would never talk to Jeff Tech about, yeah, I would never talk to Jeff Tech about that. But
Jeff Tech.
And I said, and I talked to some people and they said, don't do it. Don't even consider it until at least June of 2016.
I would agree with that assessment. Windows 10, it's just not there. They are working out the kinks,
which is why they're offering it free, because they're like asking people to download it so they can figure out what's wrong and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah.
I made that mistake. It's been fine. There are more problems than if I had just stayed with Windows 7. Let me just say that.
Yeah. Well, for those of our, and this goes for you too, Mike, but for anybody that's watching us on Hangouts and YouTube, obviously live, if you do experience a little bit of a lag, more so than usual, because I know it does lag a lot. I know that. But more so than usual, for some reason, the sound for me cuts out. There are some issues. That's why I was late. And, you asked me where the show was. I was having a lot of trouble. First of all, I had trouble getting the links up on Facebook and Twitter. Because my internet has been running really slow lately this week. It's just the other night when you were here. I mean, there's just, I don't know. It's weird. It's like, it only seems to happen during certain periods of time. Like a couple hour periods of time, like the morning and then late, like right now around this time of day. So I don't know what's really going on. I'm trying to keep an eye on it, but just be aware.
I would use the default response would be, is somebody stealing your internet? Having been connected to your internet and having to see how much you go through with your WEP key and everything you have to add, it's probably not somebody stealing your internet. I think it's just your internet being sucky.
That was my assumption, but but I'm going to keep an eye on it. Again, though, if you have experienced any issues, just let me know. I try to make this as easy on people as I can. All right, a couple of things. Now, a lot of you have been wondering, it's February next week. Welcome to Sweeps. We got a lot of things coming up in February. Obviously, the In the Spotlight Film Awards. We're going to be announcing the nominations. Remember, the nomination ballots are due on Tuesday, February the 9th. On Tuesday, February 16th, we will announce the nominations for those awards.
Hey, Brian. Psst, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
I would be happy to send in a ballot, but you never sent mine in, you ass.
I know. And you know what the sad part is? When I went in the email box today, I saw your email and I was like, oh yeah, I meant to do that last week.
You jerk. Dickbag. I want my ballot.
You will get your ballot. Don't worry.
You know what? Just for that, I am nominating Fantastic Four. So screw you.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. We are already getting nomination ballots in, because some people do like to get to them quick. Some people are already certain about things.
Hey, Google Film works.
And one of our people that does, that's going to be one of our punts counting the votes and helping with the awards, actually told me that already they've gotten 4 mentions of Fantastic Four. I said, that's 4 too many.
It is 4 too many, but I'm only doing it to spite you.
Well, you know what? I don't. If we have people that actually keep like, now we might have people just doing this to spite me because you're doing it, and then we're going to have Fantastic Four for Best Picture. So let's be careful what we wish for here.
Then let me make my public service announcement.
Please
dear
do.
People, dear voters, dear In the Spotlight people, do not, under any circumstances, vote for Fantastic Four. It was a crappy movie. It was one of the worst movies of all time. I, however, will do it because I want to get back at Brian for not sending me my ballot in a prompt and professional manner, because he's a dickbag sometimes.
Yes, I am. That is very true.
So, however, I strongly encourage everybody, do not vote for Fantastic Four.
Please don't.
Do yourself a favor. Vote for Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I'd rather people vote for Mr. Holmes. It's just a better alternative.
Yeah.
Much
Do
better
you know who
alternative.
didn't think it was a better alternative that night? Regal Cinemas.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
And the story goes real quick because we were blowing off time real well. I feel like derailing it real quick.
Go right ahead.
We went to the movie theaters that night to see like an 8:20 Mr. Holmes. It was in the theaters. It was the first time I was to see a movie in like months since like Avengers. And what happened was we, for whatever reason, Regal decided it was a smart idea to take out Mr. Holmes and replace it with a new hot, fresh movie, Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
We did see Fantastic Four because stupidly, foolishly, we thought, hey, the previews didn't look that terrible.
Little did we know.
No. Do you know what the best part of that movie was?
The credits?
The previews.
That too.
The previews. Like, the commercials for the movie were better than the movie.
Yeah. Well, that's their job. And Fox has a habit of that. Fox movies have a habit of that. They got a good trailer department. So
they've got a great trailer department there, but
I'm just going to point you in the direction of one X-Men: The Last Stand, who had an amazing trailer, and then
SpaghettiOs.
Yep. Anyway, a couple of things. The nomination ballots for the 60th In the Spotlight Film Awards are due on Tuesday, February 9th. The nominations will be announced on Tuesday, February the 16th. Okay, that week of as I've been mentioning for a while, we will not have a show on Thursday, February 11th. So keep that in mind. We will be preempted. Now that following week, that Tuesday, February 16th show, we will announce the nominations. That usually takes the whole episode. We don't do anything else. That Thursday show on February the 18th. Unfortunately, that means that usually be an all wrestling show because WWE Fastlane will be coming up on February the 21st. What we will still preview WWE Fastlane, but it will not just be an all wrestling show. We'll cover some stuff. Basically, what we do with that show, other than wrestling, will be determined by what's going on that week. More than likely, what we will do is we'll just do sports and wrestling. We'll leave the entertainment stuff off a week because honestly, we could table that. We don't have to do a box office beat. We don't have to do TV highlights. We can put that off and just, make up for it the following week, which is probably what we're going to have to do. But just be aware that won't be just an all wrestling show. We'll probably have a little sports and entertainment in there as well, which is fine. We can do that. So that will be kind of like a mixture of wrestling, sports, maybe real entertainment on that Thursday, February 18th show. A lot of you have asked me about the In the Spotlight American Idol all-time performance rankings thing, how we're going to handle that. Well, here's how we're going to handle that. Let's see here. On Thursday, February the 25th, we will have on that entertainment show, we will do our usual entertainment stuff, box office beat, all that stuff. But in addition to that, we will announce the first wave of cuts, if you will, the first set of rankings from that feature. Basically, of the performances that were submitted, we've got hundreds of them. We're going to narrow the list down. I think we're going to narrow it down to 100. And then go from there. And then we'll do this every, and then next month we'll have, like at the end of March, we'll narrow it down to 50. And then I think we'll probably stop at, 25, or maybe we'll do top 15 since it's the 15th and final season. We'll figure it out as we go along, but that's how we're going to do it little by little. So keep that in mind. That Thursday, February 25th show, we will reveal the first wave of rankings for that. Because I know a lot of you were asking about that. So that's something special to look forward to. In addition, in February, next week we will be bringing back our Bracket Bugle segment where we talk about bubble teams and who we think should make the tournament based on, all that good stuff. We'll be doing that coming back on Tuesday shows starting next week. Next Thursday, I because I keep trying to do something like in February, May, where we always try to do something special, especially on Thursday shows. And we have something special planned for pretty much every Thursday, so obviously except for the one we're not going to be on, that February 11th show. And we are going to do something special next week. I was hoping to announce it tonight because I have 2 ideas that I wanted to do. And I'm not sure which one we're going to go with yet. So we will announce that on Tuesday's show because that's not the next Thursday anyway. So keep that in mind. I was hoping to announce it tonight, but we're not going to do that. So at least you know for the most part what we're doing for most of February. We just don't know we just don't have something to announce for next Thursday yet, but we will announce that on Tuesday. I just keep going back and forth on the 2 things I'm thinking about. And then keep in mind, of course, we will announce the winners of the In the Spotlight Film Awards on Thursday, March the 3rd, which is the week after the Oscars. We always do that. What's our theme? We like to rub the awful taste of the Oscars out of your mouth because usually it's boring as hell and nobody cares. Well, we'll have our awards for the week after, and then you can care. So that would mean, again, the winning ballots will be due on Thursday, February the 25th. So keep that in mind as well. All right, so that's really all the announcements I had to make, because everybody want to know what we're doing in February. And then a lot of people have been wondering about March because March is always a month where we do a lot of preemptions because of the tournament. Again, I'm going to caution you, don't assume anything yet. As we get closer to March, I'll let you all know how we're going to do this. I've been more negotiable about it over the years because I don't like doing shows up against the big conference tournaments against the big games in the tournament. We'll see what we can figure out as we get closer to March. Right now, we're not in January yet. No sense in getting involved in that right now. So, all right. Cool. All right. I think that's all the announcements. With that being said, I had to pick up my pen here. We will move on and we will start off this entertainment show with, as we always do, the box office beat, which, I have to admit, this has been probably one of the most boring runs of the box office beat I can remember this whole month. And it's not even because the box office isn't doing good. It's doing wonderful. It is. I mean, you got Star Wars, what it's been able to do. The Revenant's been great. It's not even that the box office has been doing poorly. It's been doing great. The problem is that you can only talk about Star Wars so much or the Revenant so much. And Ride Along is basically, it dropped off considerably its second weekend, which everybody expected it to. It was always going to be a front-loaded kind of movie. But again, nothing is doing anything unexpected. Once we got over the fact that Star Wars was breaking unimaginable records, and once we got over the fact that The Revenant was surprising us, what else was there? It's fairly average kind of stuff right now. So there's not a whole lot of storylines going on. Now, obviously, one of the biggest storylines, as you said, was in Star Wars and how far it can go. And right now, as through yesterday, it stands at 1.9 million worldwide. Again, it's gonna come close, but it should beat Titanic. It's gonna come very close. It's closer than I think we probably would have expected, and then we'll have to see. I think a lot of people are gonna play the wait and see game on whether there's gonna be a re-release. It's not supposed to come out on Blu-ray or DVD or whatever till I think April. Maybe they'll toy with one. I don't think they really wanted to, but if they pass Titanic, I think there's the chance that they go, all right, maybe we can do like a limited release kind of thing and see where we're at. But I think the only thing that maybe conflicts with that is once you get to March, you got, I don't really have a lot of confidence in this movie, but still, it's going to take up theaters. You have Batman versus Superman. And there's no way that they're going to be able to fight for those theaters because they're a re-release. So that's the only thing I can see being an issue for them. If they're going to re-release it, and they have to get down to a certain point before they can even think about that, probably at the earliest mid-February, then they're going to have to make a quick decision. It's going to be one of those things where they give you like a week notice and say, okay, we're bringing it out maybe with extended footage or something. And then they see what they can do with that. But I tend to think they won't do that. I don't think they want to do that because they know what it looks like. It's desperation. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. That's something to watch for over the next couple of weeks and see how it does. And The Revenant continues to do really strong business. It's doing great on weekdays, but you expect because it's an awards kind of movie and older audiences usually go see those kind of movies on weekdays. But its weekend numbers this past weekend were great, 16 million. It was a down weekend at the box office, but still, 16 million for The Revenant. Star Wars at 14, Ride Along 2 dropped 64%, but again, maybe it dropped a little more than people expected, but given how it opened, 12.4 isn't bad. I think the more stunning thing was all the new releases totally kind of bombed. Dirty Grandpa, 11.1 million. And again, you got Robert De Niro, you got Zac Efron. Zac Efron brings in the younger audience. Robert De Niro brings in the older audience. It sounds good on paper. My only thing about that is a lot of younger audiences are still, in going in on Ride Along, still going in on Star Wars. And then you had some that were going in on the fifth wave, a lot of female stuff going on the fifth wave. And the thing about that is, Zac Efron has a high popularity among young females. So if they're all going to see the fifth wave, they're not going to go see Dirty Grandpa. And even though fifth wave didn't do as well, came in opening at sixth place with 10.3 million, you figure a lot of that was probably women under the age of like 25 or under the age of 30. And let's talk about that movie for a minute. And anybody that watches this has been a fan of the show over the years knows that I'm a big fan of Chloe Moretz. I think she's going to be a huge, huge star. Reminds me a lot of Jodie Foster, that kind of thing. She's going to have an issue now because here's the thing. She's a terrific actress, but she hasn't had a big blockbuster movie yet that's made a lot of profit. Yeah, she's had small budget movies like Kick-Ass, etc. that made profits, yes. But she's yet to have a big motion picture, big movie do huge. And that's an issue at this stage. This movie, I know why she took this movie. She took this movie because she thought this was it. And it was a smart choice. Problem is, it's a very competitive box office right now, and a lot of these movies are holding up well. They've been out for a few weeks, and that's ultimately what really hurt it. Not to mention the fact that while I think everybody appreciates Chloe Moretz, this movie did not have a big draw in it. Now, somebody argue, well, wait a minute, how can you ever tell what kind of draw Chloe Moretz is going to be if you don't trust her with a movie and see what people do? That's true. But most actors and actresses, in order to become a draw on their own, have to have people in their movies, at least starting out, that are going to draw eyes to those movies. And then, you see Chloe Moretz and go, all right, Chloe Moretz, all right. And then she goes out on her own. Then it gives people a chance to watch her when they might be going to the movie to see actor A or actress A. And then they go, all right, I like this actress. I'm going to keep following her career. Now, one would think that, she's active with a number of big names. Nicolas Cage, Johnny Depp, Michelle Pfeiffer. She's active with a number of big names. You would think that would be enough. Unfortunately, a lot of these movies she's active with these big names haven't done very well. So it's a catch-22 here. It's unfortunate. The movie didn't get the best reviews. Still $10.3 million. It's only a $38 million budget. I guess we'll see what happens there. And then you had The Boy, starring The Walking Dead's Warren Cohen, which made only 10.7, but I anticipated that not do well. And it only had $10 million budget, so it seems to be fine. 13 Hours, Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, dropped 44%, $9 million. It looks like it'll be one of those movies that maybe breaks even with its budget. Daddy's Home did okay. Norman and North, Big Short. Of course, all these awards movies, Big Short, Brooklyn, Hateful Eight, Spotlight, they all pretty much held well, and they're going to hold well over the next couple of weeks. We're in the award season now. We're approaching the Oscars and all that. So really not a whole lot of storylines here as far as what happened last weekend. The Revenant is as close to equaling its budget just domestically, but if you look at worldwide, it's well over that. It's at 7 million. So it's well on its way. So no issues there. It's done very, very well. Now, this weekend is the first weekend where I think you're going to see a lot of these holdovers, The Revenant, Star Wars, etc., really drop off because, now we've so far removed from the holidays. A lot of these movies came out over the holidays and then, some of them already dropped off considerably anyway. You have 4 big releases this weekend. 4. Okay? You got 50 Shades of Black, which is a comedy from Open Roads Films, opening in 2,075 theaters. R-rated. Again, a smooth comedy. Marlon Wayans, Fred Willard, Mike Epps, Jane Seymour. So, you know what you're going to get here. It's a parody. I wouldn't expect a lot from it, but still, it's there. We'll see what it does. I don't think it'll make a lot, maybe around 10 million or so, but you got The Finest Hour, which is the second biggest release. The Finest Hour is the second biggest release of the weekend, a thriller from Buena Vista Disney, opening in over 3,000 theaters. It's PG-13. 3,143 theaters going to get a release in. Chris Pine, Casey Affleck are in this movie. It's got a lot of. It's something I've heard about for a long time. I don't think it's going to do great. Like, it might do 12, 13 million. I mean, I don't think it has a lot of it. It is based off a true story. I'm kind of hoping it does great, but I don't think it will. I haven't heard enough people even mention it. The biggest release this weekend is the movie that's expected to break January opening records for an animated film, and that's Kung Fu Panda 3, animated film from Fox, opening in 3,955 theaters. This will hurt Star Wars a little bit because it's going to take some of those theaters. Obviously, starring the voice talents of Jack Black, Jackie Chan, Bryan Cranston, David Cross, Dustin Hoffman, Kate Hudson, Angelina Jolie, Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu. The second movie did not do particularly well. It opened in June, much like the first one did. Had a lot of competition, and that's kind of what hurt it. That's why they moved it to January. They think that would help it. It will, no doubt about it. And I think there's a general sense this is probably the last movie in that franchise, so that's going to kind of push it too. So you're looking. I think you're probably looking at a 30, 40, maybe even $50 million opening weekend for this movie. Enough time has passed since Ellen and the Chipmunks and Peanuts movie and Good Dinosaur and all that. I think people, that this will do okay. And then in a couple weeks, there's a lot of winter breaks coming up. This will no doubt get some traction there. The other big release this weekend, Jane Got a Gun, a Western from Weinstein Company, opening in 1,210 theaters. So more of a limited kind of major release. Starring Natalie Portman, Ewan McGregor, Joel Edgerton. Natalie Portman's actually a producer on it. It's R-rated. I don't expect a lot from it. Maybe 5 million or so, but that's also up there on the board this weekend. And for those interested, the 2016 Oscar-nominated short films will be in 125 theaters this weekend, chronicling short films that are nominated for this year's Academy Awards. If you're interested in that, check your local theater listing. So Kung Fu Panda is going to rule this weekend, and then you'll probably see, I would say The Finest Hours in second, 50 Shades of Black, and then probably Revenant and Star Wars, and then Ride Along. And that's probably how you're going to see them placed and such. And again, Kung Fu Panda, probably 30, 40, 50 million. Finest Hours, probably around 12, 13. 50 Shades of Black, maybe around 10. And then you can see probably The Revenant, 8, 9 million. Star Wars, 7, 8 million. And then Ride Along, probably around 6. That's probably what you're looking at as far as the top movies go, as far as around top 5, top 6 or so. So, Mike, do you have any thoughts on the box office here?
No. Kung Fu Panda is going to dominate regardless of how crappy it did previously. It's still going to be a huge kind of movie, especially since it's been a little bit since Star Wars now. And what else are the kids going to see? The Fifth Wave? The Revenant? I'm pretty sure they're done. I'm pretty sure it's a done deal with the box office. It's going to be Kung Fu Panda and everybody else this week. I mean, and just on another note, The Fifth Wave is in fact profitable when you take its international release into account. It's actually $1 million over its budget. So technically it's profitable. However, what you're referring to is Chloe Moretz is kind of looking for this big film to kind of put her on that next Hollywood level. You know, she's looking for that next big kind of project. Like, I don't know, like Jennifer Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
She hopped on Hunger Games next, then, and it kind of brought her star power to the next level. Kick-Ass was fairly successful, but it wasn't a blockbuster. Excuse me. So she's just kind of looking for that thing that will propel her to the next level. Unfortunately, it is not going to be this movie. So, this is how it goes. This is the breaks. And besides, I mean, I've seen trailers for it, and this movie kind of looked like, what's the word? Ass. It looked horrible. It looked horrendous. And you know what? I feel your pain. Everybody saw that movie. I didn't see it myself, but it wasn't. It's not for me. But that movie did not. Obviously, it wasn't for anybody else really either. So there you go. But it is what it is. But Kung Fu Panda is going to decimate, dominate, and destroy this weekend. It won't even be close. By a lot.
Yeah.
It won't even be close. That's it. That's all I really have to say about that.
Okay. All right. So fairly straightforward weekend. Now, next weekend we get into February, and as we all know, when we get into February, what happens? You start thinking about winter break, Valentine's Day, and that's usually that before January became. Before the box office completely changed, and now every month seems like it has big movies. But February used to be a big month; it used to be the biggest month of the winter, outside of the holidays. So there's always there always was big big movies coming out. And I'm trying to see. I'm not pulling up this for some reason. I'm trying to look at two things at once. Don't ever do that when you're trying to do a podcast. Seriously. That's not the right thing to do. Yeah. So, February used to be the big month for blockbusters outside of the holidays until you got to the summer. So, now, of course, that's changed. March became a big month, and all of a sudden January became a big month. Now every month of the year has big box office draws now. But February, of course, always looked at as that traditional big month in the wintertime. You do have some big movies. You got 3 movies next week. The Choice, a romance film, which, again, Valentine's Day. Hail Caesar, a comedy from Universal, which looks fantastic. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which appeals to the zombie lover in all of us. Sure. That seems like the perfect Valentine's Day movie, doesn't it?
Based off of, I think the same author did Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yes.
And that movie, they changed the ending in the movie. And I don't know why. But if they don't do that in this one, it'll be a little bit better, I imagine.
This looks like it's the perfect Valentine's Day movie. Pride and Prejudice for the women, Zombies for the men. And of course, some women like zombies, so that works too. So you got those 3 movies next weekend, and then the weekend after, you got How to Be Single, romantic comedy, Zoolander 2, which will have its fans, and of course, Deadpool, which you've all been waiting years for. So it's going to be exciting. So some big movies coming out over here over the next couple weeks. So, as you get into February, that's usually the case. So should be interesting. And now that we're kind of, the holiday movies and stuff are kind of winding down in that, it's, now you're getting back to some normalcy, but also some traditional blockbusters and stuff. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold. I think we'll have more to talk about over the next couple of weeks than we have over the last couple of weeks, where it's been the same kind of thing over and over. So, all right, that's it for the box office. Now, all right, we go on. I'm going to do something a little different. Usually we leave this for the end of the show, but I want to do this now because I think it's, it kind of breaks things up nicely, and people like it. And I sometimes think that by the time we get to at the end of the show, we've kind of like lose our energy, and it kind of hurts the segment a little bit. So why not do some TV highlights of the week right now? So Mike, what do you got for your TV highlights of this wonderful week here?
This is where I bring the bad news.
Uh-oh.
I'm behind on my television watching this week. I have to see Arrow, Gallivant, 2 episodes of The Flash, this week's Legends of Tomorrow. Good Lord. What else is there? I think... Well, I will say this. I have to also watch Agent Carter. So I'm really, really behind. I've got about 6 hours of television watching ahead of me.
Yeah.
That being said, last week's episode of Agent Carter was phenomenal. It was a great way to get us back into Agent Carter's story. And now we're going to kind of see where things go from here. Last week's Gallivant was amazing. This week's Gallivant, I have not seen yet. And the songs aren't really out on iTunes either, so I can't really judge it. It's weird. Although I kind of have an idea of what happens, and I hear there's a really funny moment involving Gallivant and another ephemeral character. Let's just say that. I can't really spoil it too much. What else? The Grinder. God, that show's ridiculous. I really like that show. Rob Lowe doesn't have to stretch too much in that show. And he's fantastic in it. Fred Savage is really good. The Grinder's a really funny kind of show. So I'm glad that Fox is giving it a chance, at least for this season. I hope they keep it because The Grinder's actually rather funny. I think that might be the only show I've caught up on, and it just is because it's a half hour, and I was awake. So, because usually I watch my television during my break from work, usually in between breakfast time and nap time. I have been going straight to nap time after breakfast because it's just been a rough week. So I'm behind. Deal with it. Not as behind as you.
Well, I'm not. I'm slowly catching up on some things. I still haven't watched an episode of Agent Carter yet, and I'm embarrassed to say that. I haven't.
You should be. Considering you asked for season 1 of Agent Carter for Christmas.
Well, listen. It's been interesting. You know what the thing is, because the first it's 2 episodes, 2 hours. It's kind of hard to find the time, but I've been able it's so much easier when I only have to watch an hour-long show because I can fast forward the commercials and all that stuff, and it makes it easier. But I have caught up on a few things. First of all, I've caught up on Arrow and Flash. I'm starting to get a little worried again because I'm seeing a second half, a little bit of a swoon coming for both shows a little bit. I'm not exactly happy with the way they're dealing with the Zoom stuff. I'm not exactly happy. I really, really sense rewrites in Arrow. Really, I did a lot of script writing courses and a lot of writing courses when I was in college, and I had a really intelligent professor once tell me. Plus, I've talked to some people online that are writers, script writers and stuff, and they've told me over the years, they said you can always tell when there's a rewrite when it looks like not only have scenes been cut, but when you look at the story that they're giving you in that particular episode, if it doesn't seem to jive anything set up beforehand. Well, guess what? I saw about maybe 7 instances in Arrow the last couple of weeks where that is possible. I do not believe for a second that, and I don't want to spoil anything, that the character whose life was in danger was not supposed to be written off. I really don't. Now, I think they had it played where they had this as what they ultimately did was an option. I really think they had that as an option, but I think that the original intention was probably to kill the character off, and then, but if they found a way to kind of do what they wanted to do with Arrow as a character, Oliver as a character, they wouldn't do it, and then they do what they're doing now. And I suspect that they're thinking that what they're doing now is going to be what helps Oliver as a character, but they're wrong. Because what they've done is basically make the last 6 months of storytelling worth nothing, because he's trudging towards where he was a year ago at the same time. And why bother doing what we did if we're just going to take him back to this point without it doesn't have to be like that. But that's where we're headed. So it just feels like, and a lot of the things that they're saying about the character turn they're making with the character that you thought was going to get killed off but didn't makes no sense either, because if you read between the lines and you see what they're doing to the character, you're thinking she's going to become a certain character or a variation of that character from the comics, but then they're claiming, oh no, we're not doing that. It's our own version of a character. It's not that character, but she's on her own. It's weird. Like I don't understand. I smell interference there. I don't know. It's just a mess. Legends of Tomorrow, I like. It's promising. I just hope that it doesn't seem to get bogged down in the same BS that the other two shows are going through right now. And don't ask me why I watched Supergirl, because I watched 2 episodes of it in the fall, and I kind of gave up on it because I said, you know what? But then, Martian the Manhunter's there, and I kind of wanted to see what they did there, because I've heard people say they're kind of doing a good job there. I'm done with that show. I can't. I truthfully can't. It's not even from a comic book standpoint. I think they treat the actress playing Supergirl is good. I like her. And I don't necessarily mind what they're doing with the character. The character, I think they're doing an okay job with. But everything around her is just ridiculously dumb. It's dumbed down plotting. It's like what they did with Elementary. It's like Elementary is to Sherlock, to me. It's dumbed down because they want to appeal to a mainstream audience and get more people watching than just comic book fans, and it's just completely lowest common denominator storytelling. I just can't do it. It's just horrible. So, yeah, that's something. I gave it a second chance. Couldn't deal with it. Sorry. So yeah, so that's what's something else I watched. I'm trying to think of what I watched other than sports. Something else I watched. What I watched? Oh, I watched The Blacklist, but that show's been doing good all season, so I'm not even gonna go down that road. Although I will say this, that episode was really weird, because it was, The Blacklist, for why, like, you really have to pay attention when you watch that show, because they're so quick in the dialogue, and I literally, like, by the time we figured out what was going on, I was like, it was a really good story, like a really good thing to do, and it made a lot of sense and advanced the overall plot in that. So it's not like it was bad writing, but boy, you really have to trust your audience to do what they did with that episode, making you think red wasn't red, and all these details. Well, what is he doing? Well, what's this guy doing? Who is this guy? He's in the box. Like it was a lot to kind of absorb. Like that. How there's certain movies that you have to go to the movie theater a couple times before sometimes you get it.
Inception.
Well, not even Interstellar and stuff. Like that's what that episode of Blacklist was. You kind of have to go back and watch it maybe a couple times and then go, oh, okay. Like you do get the gist of it the first time, but then you're like, well, how did we get there? Like, why did we do this? What was the point? And then if you watch it again, you kind of go, oh, all right. It really expected a lot of the audience, which I like. It's smart. It's not trying to dumb things down for you. I appreciate that. But at the same time, it really does command a lot of attention. So, and that's okay. I mean, that's fine. That's why we have, DVRs and stuff, or you can watch it again online. It's okay. But yeah, I really have to get to Galvan. I really have to get to Agent Carter. I haven't heard a bad thing about Agent Carter, which I never expected to anyway. So But yeah, that's pretty much all I watched. And I have to start getting caught up on some of these shows because I got a couple shows coming back in a few weeks, so I got to get going on that. But American Idol I've been watching, and that's been good. But I can't really comment on it because I haven't watched last night's with the Hollywood stuff, and that's kind of when the show starts to get really interesting. So I haven't. But the audition stuff's been fun, so I'll give them that. All right, so Mike, SU won.
I know.
One big,
pretty
too.
heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 25 Notre Dame, according to one poll.
Hey, that's going to help. It helps.
Mm-hmm.
So good for them. Yeah, I saw they were up big at halftime, and I was like, oh, wow, that's good. But good that they not only won it, but they won it defiantly. We always have to throw out some Syracuse mention here. So, all right.
Yep.
So let's get into some entertainment news topics here. Because obviously a big story over the last week has been the overhaul of the Academy. Of course, the Academy being the Academy that very much votes on the Oscars. Now they had an emergency meeting last week regarding diversity because obviously that's been the big topic. And out of that emergency meeting, changes happened. All right, major changes, and this is the most significant changes to the Academy in easily, I think, maybe 15, 20 years, easily. And this is not lip service. This ain't like they did a couple years ago. They expanded the Best Picture thing to 10, whatever. This is big deal. This is something significant. And because it focuses on voting and recruitment, and also adding 3 new seats to the 51-person board. They want to double the number of women and diverse members of the Academy by 2020. These changes were immediately approved Thursday night in an emergency meeting, which is, again, designed to try to save the Oscars because they want people to be able to show up. The Oscars take place, of course, on February the 28th. There'll be Chris Rock is hosting. Now, there was some concern that Chris Rock would boycott as well and not even host. Jada Pinkett Smith, Spike Lee, and Will Smith said they will not attend. A lot of activists had urged Chris Rock to withdraw. He never addressed those directly, but he felt like he could do more good by remaining. Obviously, that meant that he was probably going to say some things while on stage, which we all talked about anyway. We thought that would be the case.
The most dangerous place for Chris Rock at the Oscars is for him to be on stage. Yeah. The most dangerous place for the Oscars for Chris Rock. If he doesn't host, well, so what? They go get Billy Crystal again and nothing happens. Right.
Well, again, I think he, a lot of people said, okay, there was talk that he was not gonna do it. A lot of people asked him to step down and not host. But he does have a point. And like you said, he can go up there, he can say what he wants, and they can't do anything because they're already under the gun anyway. So, that's why I think they felt like they had to move on this. They had to make changes. They had to respond. Academy President Cheryl Boone Isaacs announced the changes in a statement on Friday. And the quote was, "The Academy is going to lead and not wait for the industry to catch up. These new measures regarding governance and voting will have an immediate impact and begin the process of significantly changing our membership composition." Now, here's the changes. Of course, these will affect the voting status of several new and longtime members. Beginning later this year, each new member's voting status will last 10 years and will be renewed if the new member has been active in film during that decade. In addition, members will receive lifetime voting rights after 3 10-year terms, or if they have been nominated for an Academy Award. The Academy will apply these same standards retroactively to current members. In other words, if a current member has not been active in the last 10 years, they can still qualify by meeting the other criteria. Those who do not qualify for active status will be moved to emeritus status. Those emeritus members do not pay dues but enjoy all the privileges of membership except voting. This will not, of course, affect the voting for this year's Oscars because it's already done. In order to immediately increase diversity on the board, the Academy will establish 3 new governor seats to be nominated by the president for 3-year terms and confirmed by the board. The current board consists of 51 people. At the same time, the Academy will supplement the traditional process in which current members sponsor new members by launching an ambitious global campaign to identify and recruit qualified new members who represent greater diversity. The proposals were passed unanimously at this emergency board meeting last Thursday night. They decided not to wait for their regularly scheduled board meeting, which would have been this week. Now, here's the key for me, okay, before we open this up here. You have to read between the lines, because yes, this is about diversity. Yes, it's about minorities. It's about women, getting a more diverse group of people into the Academy. More women, more African Americans, more Latinos, more Asians, just a more diverse group. It's also about getting younger too, because that's ultimately what this is about. You notice they threw in the emeritus status in there, which means you can be still involved, but you're not voting. Because as you get older, obviously you're not as active, and therefore if you're not as active in a 10-year period, then you go up to, think about this for a second. A lot of the Academy, we've talked about this before, edges more towards being older, which means a lot of them are probably going to end up being, put up in the emeritus status. They're not going to be voting. This changes the game. This is not the way I anticipated us getting changes, but it changes the game. I didn't think it was going to be about. I didn't think that we were going to have this kind of controversy, because usually the Academy in the past has nominated African Americans, it has nominated Latinos, it has nominated women. Come on, it's not like they haven't. They haven't nominated as many as they should, which is an issue, and that's why I don't think that it's not like there isn't an issue here. There is, and I'm glad it's been recognized. But we've been saying there's issues with the Oscars and the Academy for years now. Lack of diversity is one of the biggest. But another thing is what they choose to award. Not representing the best in film every year was right up there with that issue as well. And now, even though the focus has been on diversity, and rightfully so, because that is the issue that is the hugest right now. Because of that, it's going to change some of the other things we all have issues with. And, I know I've said before, well, we hope that there'll be change. This to me is significant. Watching, paying attention, researching the Oscars, how everything works, the process, everything. And you all know how I feel about it. Those of you that have been listening or watching our show for the last 5 years, you know how I feel about it. If I didn't think that this wasn't going to lead to significant change, I would be the first person to say it. This is very significant. You are going to see changes. You are going to see different representation. You are going to see, I honestly think, now I'm not going to say that it's going to solve everything. Hopefully it solves a lot of things. You're still going to look up there and go, well, this should have been nominated. But I honestly believe, because I think the Academy is going to become younger. I think you're going to see more women. You're going to see more African Americans. You're going to see more Latinos. You're going to see more diversity amongst these members. You're going to see them understand that cinema has changed. And I think you're going to see that represented now in these nominations. Obviously, there's always going to be snubs. Obviously, politics will always be in play. I think we all understand that. But I think when we look at the nominations, next year you might not see the total effect of it. You might see a little bit of an effect. I think more so the year after. But in a couple years, I think you're going to be able to look at the nominations and go, wow, that is a lot better than what we used to have. It might not be perfect, but it's better. And that's a step in the right direction. I am very glad that this, we talked about, those that were boycotting. They might have had their own personal reasons, whatever. It doesn't. I'm glad that we at least we got to this point that there were significant changes. I do applaud the Academy for doing this, acting swiftly. I think that was the right move. Cheryl Boone Isaacs was completely right to insist upon that. The diversity issue was the biggest issue. It needed to be solved right away. It hopefully has been. The other stuff, awarding the best in film, having a better representation of what's the best in film every year. Hopefully that will be solved by this. I think it will be in In time, I think it will be. I think this is the start of it. I'm very pleased with it. I think the next step is looking at the preferential voting system, which we talked about, which is grading movies that are submitted, or actors or actresses that submit on a like scale. You rate them, you may give them ones or twos or whatever. That whole preferential voting thing, I think that's the next overhaul. I think they have to get rid of that and figure out something else, maybe something along the scales what we do on our show to avoid vote spamming and stuff, which is you rank your top choices, and the higher you rank them, the more points they get, that kind of thing. I think something along those lines would be very good. Because and you're never going to take the politics out of it. We all know that. I think we all understand that. But at the same time, this is a huge step in the right direction towards having a much better representation of film amongst not only the films nominated for Best Picture, but along the lines of the directors, writers, actors, actresses. Doesn't matter what race you are, gender, whatever. If you're among the best, you should be nominated. Hopefully, we'll see that represented next year. Hopefully, we'll see diversity amongst the nominees, amongst the Academy, and then we'll see a better representation of what's the best in film every year. And hopefully that's the case. I really hope that this is as good as I think it is. I think it will be good. I'm very glad to see that this has happened. Mike, you got any thoughts on this?
All right. I've said it before. I'm not going to say it again. Oh, I guess I'll say it one more time. Jada Pinkett Smith, Spike Lee, and Will Smith not attending the Oscars, that gives off a sense of hypocrisy. Maybe less so with Spike Lee, but definitely with Will and Jada Pinkett Smith. Mm-hmm. That's just sour grapes over Will not getting a nomination. Maybe he deserved it. Maybe he didn't. I hold the sins of the movie on a lot of people. I haven't seen it. I have no interest in seeing it. I have no interest in seeing a movie that had elements changed to protect the organization it was going after and to begin with. So if that hurt Will's credibility, then you know what? Sorry, Will. That's not on the old white voters. That's on your producers. As for the Oscars, change needed to happen in the worst way. It's not so much they needed to be more diverse, even though I do believe, and let me stress this, they needed to be more diverse.
Right.
They need just as desperately to be current. You've got voters who have been on there voting since cinema was in black and white, and their tastes have never evolved past then. So those type of voters just don't get the fact that, hey, maybe people give a crap about the Avengers, or hey, maybe the Star Wars movie is pretty good, or hey, that Lord of the Rings movie, maybe we should vote for it or else we're going to get ransacked. Maybe we should vote for it because it was just really good. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. No, they don't believe it. They believe that cinema should go back, and this is kind of going along the lines of our film elitist friend, that film should go back to be this more artsy, slower paced, dialogue heavy kind of thing. And while there is a place for that, I'm not saying that is totally evolved, Cinema's evolved past that. No, there's a place for that type of movie in this current era. However, the current era and the type of movie have evolved kind of, not past that, but kind of evolved on top of that. So while that was the dominant sort of movie back then, nowadays it's only one sort of movie. You've got the big blockbusters, you've got animated movies, which you need to take seriously now. Fun fact, they took it more seriously back then than they do now.
Right.
You've got musicals, you've got action movies, you've got crap movies, you've got Michael Bay movies, which are less than crap. You've got all these different types with various budgets and varying degrees of quality. So the point being, you are still limiting what it was considered, now it's not, considered to be the biggest award show of the year, and you're limiting your audience and your growth on those movies based on what you nominate, and you are relying on the presenters and the host to kind of draw the people back in. A lot of these people don't realize that, hey, maybe if we nominate Star Wars for more than just the technical categories, more people would watch. They haven't figured that part out yet. So there's not a whole lot I can truly and honestly say.
I think they figured it out. I just don't think they care.
They don't care, and I'm just watching you do weird.
Yep. Thank you. I thought the sound effect would be very entertaining.
It wasn't.
Sorry. I failed.
So yeah, maybe they realize it, but it's just they don't want to go against their integrity, their moral code as filmmakers. Your moral code of filmmakers is full of shit, because the casting couch was full. That's one of the things that I'd hold against them. The casting couch back then was more notorious than it maybe kind of is now, which is impressive considering how sleazy Hollywood is.
Yeah.
Backroom deals, politics, backstabbing. It was just as terrible as it is now.
Yeah.
Let's be clear here. Hollywood in that regard really hasn't changed all that much. So the fact that they're trying to hold this moral dignity over the current cinema age is ridiculous. Cinema evolves, tastes evolve, what people actually give a shit about evolves.
Right, and
you don't think movies back then, if they had the budgets of today, would have taken advantage of it? They totally would have. It would have looked way less fake. That's how it is.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that there's this feeling amongst older voters. And I'm not trying to be ageist here. I'm just saying, because let's be honest, what most of us grow up when we get older, what happens to us? We all like what we like. We like what we liked when we were younger or whatever. Well, back in our day, who's that? You hear that all the time, right? Well, back when I was in high school, we listened to this, or we watched this, or whatever. And you watch what other what teenagers and stuff are doing now, and you go, wow, oh God, that sucks. Like South Park did a whole episode about it. But that's kind of, but that is naturally what happens, and it's a natural reaction to things. So you don't think that the older these voters get, they're going to sit there and look at these movies and go, well, I don't like that. I don't get it. And that's why they want to have more diverse members. They want to get younger. They want to have people come. They want to have a rotation, changeover every now and then, so that you're ushering in new members, so that way you can adjust to the times. Because let's be honest, everything is subjective, right? One person can look at a movie and go, that's the best movie I've ever seen. And then another person can look at it and go, that's the worst movie I've ever seen. And that's the truth. It's just the way it is. Nobody's necessarily right or wrong, but that's just the fact of the matter. So you're going to have somebody come in and let's be honest, a movie in 2016 to a voter that might have been on the Academy since the 60s or 50s, going to look at it and go, if there's something completely you don't think that there was those voters on the panel that looked at Inception a few years ago and went, what is this? And it's not to say they're stupid. It's just that, well, I don't get what they're trying to do here. You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to have a group of people in there that can look at things and go, all right, in 2016, is this what we have here for nominations? Is this a good representative of what in 2015, 2016 was the best movies? And in order to be able to accurately judge that, in order to be able to say that, in order to be able to look at your nomination list and say, I think we picked a good representation of what we think is the top 5, top 10 best movies of the past year. You need to have a diverse academy of young and old and African American and white and Latino and ever. You need to have people of different, different races, different genders, different cultures, different whatever. You need to have that. You need to have a mixture, a balance, because otherwise you're not going to be able to accurately represent film. Because not everybody's always going to get everything. But then there's going to be, you want to hope that there's a couple people in that room that do, and that can say, you know what, I really stand by this. I think this film should be in there. Or, you know what, you're not seeing this. This is what this film was trying to do. You need that. And you haven't had that. That's the problem. You had too many people with the same mindset. And that's the biggest issue, is they all want to think, well, you know what, there's almost just like this snobbish aspect to it, where it's like, I don't like these films that they keep pushing out in 2015 or 2016 or 2014, whatever. I like, well, this movie is like a throwback to 1968 or 1970 or whatever. And that's nice. You can do that. That's a good you can have that kind of movie, like The Artist. I love The Artist. I love that movie. I think it was deserving of was it deserving of a win? I don't think so. But was it deserving of a nomination? Sure it was. And that was a throwback, and I liked it. And I'm obviously more contemporary. You know a lot of the movies I like and push on the show. I liked it. So that's what I'm saying. You need to have people in there that will look at things and go, all right, and be able to, they can sit there and look at it and go, and don't tell me that you're going to put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 nominations down, and there's not a single movie on that list that made over $100 million. Don't tell me that. And now I know there's once or twice you get a big movie like American Sniper last year, The Revenant this year, whatever. But outside of those few exceptions, don't tell me that there can't be an Avengers on there. Don't tell me that there can't be a Harry Potter or gosh, I'm blanking on this for a second. A James Bond, or don't tell me that there can't be those kind of movies.
Yeah.
You can't. We've had some classics over the years. Animation. Pixar puts out a movie every year that should be in Best Picture. Every year. Every year you could justify a Pixar nomination in Best Picture. Every year. Most years you can nominate a Disney animated movie, assuming they have one every year. Don't tell me they can't be in there. When pretty much most of the critics that go in to see those animated movies for Disney or Pixar think every single one of them is art or a masterpiece. When you got critics saying that they're art or masterpieces, why aren't they up for Best Picture? Good question. You mean to tell me all these critics that study film and critique it for a living are all wrong, and they don't and they're thinking it's a masterpiece? If you have a movie that's 98% on Rotten Tomatoes or on Metacritic or whatever, and it doesn't even get nominated for an Oscar for Best Picture, how is that possible?
Because the current Academy members are out of date. Sorry, you interrupted me, so I'm going to interrupt you. I wasn't done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But no. I wanted you to go on and have your rant. But yes, the Academy members are horribly out of date. The current Academy is disgustingly out of date. Now, would that problem be solved were there more diversity on the board? The partial answer to that is yes. The partial answers to that is yes, because a more diverse board means you've got more opinions out there. And having a younger board, having a younger voting body means you've got more diverse and current opinions out there. However, at the time, yes, why I said partially is that a more diverse board still also would include all of these old white voters and I'm not saying old or white is a derogatory term, but these out-of-date voters, because you could still be older, you could still be white, and you could still have a fabulous, current, modern opinion. These out-of-touch and out-of-date voters, however, they're still the majority voters. In my opinion, they're the cause. So they're not leaving anytime soon. So to create this emeritus thing is probably the biggest thing you could do, because yes, they can have a say, but they don't have a vote. And that's the most important thing. You have to be current. If the last movie you made was in 1940, you shouldn't be voting in 2016. End of discussion. Okay, let me say that. If the last movie you made was in 1940, and your opinion of cinema hasn't evolved since then you shouldn't be voting in 2016. I don't want to insult people who have seen movies in the 1940s and can still appreciate cinema in 2016. That's just not fair. But the truth is, diversity was only one part of the solution. Creating the whole emeritus thing, where they can have an opinion. However, they don't get a vote, is probably I would say, as equally as important. Because then, and only then, can the Academy start to change.
Right.
And actually we see real change. So when they estimated, you told me it's 2020, that would probably be the time where we're going to see a real full current modern Academy. Because eventually these members will occasionally just kind of ascend to the emeritus position. And maybe in 2020, we're going to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as a Best Picture nominee. And honestly, last year, Guardians of the Galaxy was probably the best movie in cinema, and that's my opinion. My opinion alone. It was easily the most fun movie in cinemas. Good Lord. Mm-hmm. Last year, it wasn't. No, I mean 2014. I'm still thinking it's like 2015. I don't know. See, I'm a year behind, I guess. Oh God, are you going to put me in emeritus status? No, Brian, don't put me in emeritus status. No, I need to have an opinion. No.
Wow. Wow. That's intense. He just mute himself, seriously. You know what? I think all that we hope for is better, and hope that there's improvement on all the issues. And like I said, if you can have a best representative of film, if you have a list of films that you can say are a good representative, and look, there should be a balance. There should be a little animated. There should be a little comedy. There should be a little drama. There should be a little sci-fi. And because you can't tell me, I mean, yeah, maybe there's a year or so there where there's not a good sci-fi movie or a good comedy or whatever. But you know what? Most years, there should be a balance of the kind of movies that you're seeing up there. I thought that when they did the 10 Best Picture nominations, I thought that was good, because I think that then that's the best chance you have at representing the best. So there's usually 10 really good movies a year, unless you have a really bad year. And if you want, I mean, again, nobody's saying that the smaller budget movies can't be in there. There are some. I'm not saying that those aren't amongst the best movies of the year, but don't tell me that's all that there is. When we see a 5 or 10, when we see 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 movies nominated for Best Picture, and out of, let's say there's 10 of them, out of 10 of them, 7 of them are all movies that barely anybody's seen. That's not a good percentage. It's not fair. Excuse me. That's like burping on the air. That would get people's attention. But no, seriously, you can't tell me that. You can't tell me that there wasn't other movies that year. A Pixar movie, a Disney animated movie, even a comic book movie, a comic. You can't tell me that there's nothing else you can put in those slots. But we talked about this. Hopefully this is the change that we needed to get things going in the right direction. I think it is. I'm very happy with it. I'm glad for everybody that supported this and helped get this going. Kudos. And hopefully we'll see better results, more diversity, better representative of film, better representative of the best acting in film for the year. Hopefully we'll get all that. I really do. All right, there's a couple other things that we're going to talk about. Not a lot, because honestly, it hasn't been a whole lot. I mean, the Academy thing was the biggest thing. There are a couple interesting topics out there that some of you wanted us to talk about, that or wanted our opinion on. One of them was a story that came out a few days ago from Bob Iger, saying that the Star Wars and Marvel movies will continue forever. His quote was, "There are 5 Star Wars films, 4 more with episode 2, episode 7, The Force Awakens, that are in varying stages of development and production. There'll be more after that. I don't know how many. I don't know how often." Of course, and then Marvel, of course, was getting ready to have like a 3-movie a year kind of thing going on. When asked about that, he said, and I quote, "No, I don't think they're getting worried, but I think we keep raising the bar in terms of telling stories that bring them back, that excite them, that make it feel new, and that is what we do for a living." A lot of people thought, you know what, at what point is this going to be too much? Not because you can consider what we look at. You're going to look every year at what Disney has to offer and its various affiliates: Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, its animated division, and you're going to go, wow. There's a Disney animated film. There's a Pixar movie. There's 3 Marvel movies. There's a Pirates movie. There's a Star Wars movie. At what point is this going to be oversaturation of too much? And that's something that goes into a whole other trajectory of this current structure pattern at the box office, which has developed over the last couple of years, where it used to be during the holidays, maybe a couple weeks in February. And then you had your summer, and then that was it. And then you had, during the other times of the year, you had smaller movies, a couple big things here and there. But it was, now every week there's a big movie being released. And then you look at it, and even in the summer, sometimes there's 2 or 3 major blockbuster movies coming out in a week. At what point is it going to be too much? The bottom line is this, okay? Brands like Marvel, brands like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean, these are all major brands, and this is not gonna hurt them. First of all, with inflation, everything, these movies are always gonna make a big profit. All right, we all know it hurts the movie that doesn't have that fan base already ready to come out in droves for that movie. Something completely original, that's what it's gonna lose. That's what's gonna franchises don't get hurt. Popular brands don't get hurt by this kind of thing. It's the smaller movies that get hurt by this kind of thing. It's the movies that don't have the fan base. They have to work hard on their own. You look at a movie like, oh gosh, think of a movie like Dirty Grandpa last weekend, which doesn't have a fan base. It's a movie about a grandpa and his grandson going on a road trip and such. That movie, I mean, yeah, it's got 2 very big actors in it, and Zac Efron and Robert De Niro, but it has to, they have their fan base, for sure, but it doesn't mean they're going to come out and see it. And you saw by the numbers, didn't mean anything. But they don't, it's not like it's a Marvel. Now, if that were, and not that it would, but if that was a Marvel movie for some reason, I guarantee you it wouldn't have done that badly. Name value. And that's why these kind of movies are kind of like not going to be bothered by what many people feel like is this, it's like this current age of film, current age of the box office, where it's just like there's never a break anymore. Week in and week out, there's something big. You might have a more quieter week here and there, but there's usually something big coming out every week now. Not necessarily always a big Marvel movie or a big Disney movie or a DC movie or whatever, but something that at least is going to get at least 2,000, 3,000 theaters is usually coming out every week. And that wasn't always the case going back to 3-4 years ago. So it's a different age. Do I see this as a bad thing? No. I know there's a lot of people out there that see it as oversaturation, that see it as a bad thing, because there's a lot of movies that are going to suffer because of it. But my opinion is, if you're bringing people back to the box office, you're bringing people to the cinema, it's never a bad thing. And a lot of these movies, these Marvel movies, even DC movies, these are escape, Star Wars stuff. These are escape movies. These are the kind of movies you can just immerse yourself in. Yeah, we all like drama. Yeah, we all like comedy. We all like dramas. We like realistic kind of movies, historical movies and stuff. We all like that. But for the most part, when you go to the movies, okay, you want to escape. You want to relax. You want to enjoy. You want to be taken on a roller coaster, taken on an adventure. And these kind of movies do that. That's what, and that's what the very nature of film is. In a lot of ways. So I don't think it hurts at all. I don't think it's a bad thing. Obviously, for some movies it might be, but then you got to work a little harder to make sure your movie gets promoted and has a chance. You might have to move your movie around, play it, and see. You might say, "Hey, we have a better chance against this movie than this movie." Yeah, then you got to. It does mean you have to think things through before you decide on the release date for your movie. But you should have been doing that anyway. So. I mean, you do have to do things differently, but it is what it is. And clearly my co-host isn't bothered by the fact that there's going to be apparently a never-ending a barrage of Star Wars and Marvel movies. Are you, Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry. My opinion doesn't matter anymore. I am an emeritus member of this show. Although, if I had to lay an opinion down, I am more happy there are more Marvel movies coming. Star Wars, it's not my thing. It's not my franchise. There are cool aspects about it. I'm not going to lie. Force Awakens was super good. It was super good. It was a solid, pretty solid, fantasy sci-fi action kind of movie. I wish J.J. Abrams, excuse me, I'm exhausted. I wish J.J. Abrams would have just handled the whole 3 movies, but it's not to be. But I am super happy that it's happening, I guess. Why would Disney try to say, oh, there's going to be a limit on movies that are making us billions of dollars? There seems to be something inherently wrong with that. Why would they say, oh, this movie is making us so much money? Well, in 5 years, they're going to be pointless. What a fad. No, they're never going to say no. Never, ever. Because it's making them billions of dollars. And people like these movies. Why would they get rid of them? I don't understand that.
Yeah. And we were joking the other day off the air. I made to mention that it must be nice if you're Disney because, oh, well, you know what? We got to hold back on Star Wars. It's probably their own choice anyway because they want to go after the Avatar record again in December 2017. But you know what? It must be nice that they feel they can do that because, well, we'll just move another $1 billion franchise to July from November to give it enough space. And then we'll move our Pirates $1 billion franchise to May to take the place of Star Wars. We can just move these $1 billion franchises around and we'll be okay. I mean, you just come on. It's hilarious when you think about it. But here's another story that and look, it's funny. I think a lot of you out there send me these stories because I have a personal stake in them because I'm a big, comic book movie fan, Batman fan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think you send this to me and you go, all right, what's your thoughts on this? And I'm like, okay. So I'll bring this up because, it is interesting. A story got out earlier this week about Zack Snyder asking Christopher Nolan's blessing before doing Batman versus Superman. Apparently, according to Zack Snyder, now, of course, Christopher Nolan was a producer on Man of Steel, and Mike knows you could see his imprints on a couple of moments in that movie.
Stress on a couple.
Yeah, and that was probably the best parts of the movie, but I digress. But anyway, this came in a story in Empire, and the interview was with Zack Snyder. And here's a quote from that story. and this is a quote from Zack Snyder, of course. You tell me if you don't want me to do it, Snyder told Nolan. After a silence, Nolan said, well, we don't own these characters. When you're done making Batman movies, someone else will make them. And Zack Snyder went on to say later on in the piece, I think he found it a little bit hard. I would feel the same way. Okay. Now, look. Here's the thing. If you ever watch Christopher Nolan documentaries about Batman, if you know Christopher Nolan as far as how he feels about movies, his perspective on Hollywood, all this stuff, you know that while he understood that this was a franchise, it was never for him it was, I'm just making good movies that just happen to be about Batman. If I don't have a good idea, if I don't have a good story, I'm not going to make those movies. That's why it always took so long for him to even agree to come back to do a Batman movie, was because he had to make sure, even though he had ideas when he was filming, his Batman Begins, he always had ideas, but he's like, okay, how can I develop those ideas? Just because you have an idea doesn't mean it's going to work out. Doesn't mean it's going to end up being a film that people are going to want to see. If he didn't feel like he had that, he didn't go ahead and come back. And for Nolan, he walked away from Batman not because he didn't like the character, not because he didn't really, in theory, want to do anymore. He had ideas. I think everybody knows that. It was because he felt like the original story that he wanted to tell, from a character standpoint, he felt he completed. And he felt like the storyline that he had in mind, if he was going to do it for 3 movies, was completed. And if he ever came up with something that he thought we could come back to, he probably would go back. Now, in this day and age with comic book movies, Marvel and everything, I think he understood that there's very likely that somebody was going to come in here, that DC was going to say we needed more Batman movies, and somebody's going to take over. But I think he had hope that they'd at least take it over and continue his blueprint. And not act like it hasn't happened or whatever the case may be. Because he left it in a place where you could conceivably tell new stories, maybe with a different Batman. And I think when Snyder feels like, I think he found it a bit hard, I think that's probably what he means. I think he thinks Nolan was having a difficult time letting go of Batman. No, I think Nolan was having a difficult time letting go of Batman and letting them completely just act like it never happened. Because I think he felt like, what I gave you, you could have done something with. But you don't want to do that because you're too, and he's not saying that, but I think this is just my feeling about what, maybe what he's thinking. I could be wrong. You could have done it, picked it up right where I left off. Or even had it be, you're going to bring Bruce Wayne on as an older version of himself, which is kind of what he did in Dark Knight Rises anyway. Have it be a couple years after. Maybe Bruce Wayne came back to being Batman. Or maybe just have this be what brings him back to being Batman, is what's going on with Superman. And then you tell a story from that. And then you go from there, and then it connects to the previous Batman movies, and all that investment that the fans made and he made continues. And let's be honest, that would help the DC movies a lot if you did that. Because people are like, oh wow, they're continuing the storyline from the Dark Knight trilogy into the new DC universe. Instantly, you have people invested in something that's already existing before you started these new movies in this current universe. Instead, you're going to ask us to act like none of that happened, and then you're going to have us see Batman for the first time years after he's been Batman. He's been hardened by all this stuff, and all this stuff that's taken place off screen that we never saw explored. Instead of just going with what we've had over the last 10, 15 years, which we've seen explored, where we have emotional investment. I think that might be what he's having a difficult time with, is I gave you this and you don't want to take it. That's what I think he's having a hard time. He gets that people are going to keep making Batman movies. He said that from the time he let go of it. Oh, I know. People are going to keep making Batman movies after I'm done with them. He knows that. He understands the business. But I think he felt like, all right, kind of like what happened with Tim Burton in the original Batman movies. Even though what came after that with Joe Schumacher wasn't very good, at least they picked it up from that and didn't act like that stuff didn't happen. It was a continuing franchise. I think he felt like they would have at least continued the franchise from where he left it. And I think that's probably what he's having a difficult time with, is the fact that they're not going to do that. And it makes it feel like, well, all right, you want to reboot it again, and go ahead. But it kind of sucks because you had this. And you could have used it. Do you think that that's a very plausible theory, Mike?
I'm sorry. The computer was skipping.
Yep.
You sounded like a robot swimming sometimes. What can I say? Look, he might have asked for the permission, and Christopher Nolan's like, well, what I guess is, correct me if I'm wrong, it whatever, right?
Yep.
He's distancing. I can't talk tonight. He's distancing himself from the project. It sounds like. It's like, well, I don't care. Because look, the best parts of Man of Steel were not done by Zack Snyder. Best parts of Man of Steel were done by Christopher Nolan. And he's like, well, we're going to jump right back in and we're going to bring in Batman to this. Can we do it? Christopher Nolan's like, I don't care. Go ahead. The character's going to be used anyway.
Right.
Don't be butthurt when I release my Batman Incorporated movie a couple of years from now. Totally would screw up your DC universe that you're trying to make, Zach.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel like. Long and the short, that's kind of what I feel like his response is going to be. And it could have been more. It could have been more of a collaborative effort. But Zack Snyder went and did what Zack Snyder does, and that's what he makes great trailer movies. His movies so much, not so much. Look, I'm aware that there are some people out there that will swear by Watchmen, the movie. They will swear by Sucker Punch. They will swear by 300. However, most people don't. Most people are disappointed by Watchmen, and most people didn't see Sucker Punch because they were disappointed by Watchmen. So the God's honest truth is, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like Christopher Nolan certainly doesn't. Is like, look, I am a producer in name only. You have to give me a paycheck. In fact, I'm pretty sure Christopher Nolan would pay to have his name taken off the thing. If he weren't being breach of contract, I'm pretty sure he would have taken his name off the producer credits for the next bunch of movies from DC. So, and it's funny because the DC universe, the Arrowverse, had to kill off a character this week. I spoiled it. A character who is appearing in a DC universe movie.
Yep.
So they had to kill this character off. And they had to rewrite some things to keep a certain character alive. What's funny, though, is they got their own little references, and I don't know if DC just didn't notice or if Mel snuck it in, but there was a reference to Oracle and how it now Batman exists. Batman exists in the Arrowverse, and I'm pretty sure DC's not happy about that. So that's probably Stephen Amell going, hey guys, right there. You know? And God bless Stephen Amell because he's fantastic at what he does. But going back to Zack Snyder, look, Christopher Nolan is essentially this move was him washing his hands of the project. I don't need it. Go away. And by the way, I am doing a Batman movie in a couple of years. Have fun. have fun staying relevant.
You know, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is the fact that, like I love how it's implied that it's like Zack Snyder's like, he's letting go of it. He's not letting go of anything, because see, here's the thing: we've had franchises before that went on, did a couple other movies, and then what do? Like look what happened with Superman's franchise on its own. We had Superman Returns, which forgot that the Superman 3 existed. You don't think that Christopher Nolan in a couple years can say, well, that was their Batman, and that's in the universe with Batman and Superman and all this other stuff, like with Superman and Justice League and that. My Batman doesn't have that universe. My Batman exists solely in a world where there's this Batman. He made that clear from day one. Remember, from the start, he said, we're not mentioning other superheroes. We're just mentioning Batman. It exists in its own universe, and he can continue to maintain that, and people are going to buy that. And because he don't need that. He doesn't need other, superheroes involved in the Batman movies at all. I think he will go back to it at some point. I think they're going to be begging him to come back to it at some point if he doesn't go back to it on his own. I mean, I think we all know Batman versus Superman will make money. I don't think this thing's going to careen out of control until you start getting into the solo efforts. I mean, this movie will make money, and then we'll see how much. If it does damage the brand, these brands, Superman, Batman, etc. We'll see how it does when we see these solo movies, how it damages the brands. Then that's when it'll tell the story of okay, is this going to work? Are we going to be able to do enough with this or not? That's ultimately what's going to be. This movie is going to, I mean, just from a curiosity standpoint of seeing these two battle each other, it's going to do well. I mean, it's funny. A lot of people have asked me off the air. They said, "Why are you going to see it if you're so dead set against the idea of the movie?" I'm not against the idea of Batman versus Superman. I just think it's too early for it. I can appreciate how they're setting it up. I think they've actually, the setup for it and the way that they're going about it, I think is actually pretty smart. But I don't think they're going to execute it well. I think the premise is smart, but I don't think they're going to develop it the way that they should. I don't have any trust that they will. Just like Man of Steel did a lot of different things, and the premise was sound, but ultimately the execution was horrible. And I think that's the same thing you're going to get here. You're going to sit there and go, wow, you could have done so much with this and you're not doing it right. Like, it's the execution of it that I think is going to be questionable at best. And that's going to be where they damaged everything. And I think they're rushing. They want to hurry up to try to catch up to Marvel. And what they don't realize is Marvel took years to develop. Well, they do realize, they just don't care. Took years to develop their universe, and that investment is why it's paying off now. You had to be patient, and and people were, and look what we got now. So we'll see. But my thing is, I take it from the perspective of no one's like, I gave you this, you don't want to use it. Well, you're lost. Because what's going to happen is the fans are going to constantly compare your version to this, because this is what they've known. Now, I recognize that if they had chosen to continue Nolan's story within this new universe, that they would still be compared, but at least the fans can say, well, at least you're picking up what we know. May not be developed as good, may not be as good, but at least I don't feel like we have to start over again or absorb a whole new take on the character. And now you're asking fans to do that. And putting poor Ben Affleck in a horrible position to do it. But we'll see. All right, so we did enough. We're closing in on 10 o'clock. It is time to wind down. We have another show tomorrow, so I don't want to, drain myself here. So, as always, the show might be over. It does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to our show. Continue to have your voice heard. Continue to give us your feedback, your questions about the show, scheduling of the show, suggestions, topic ideas, breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, wrestling. I'll make sure we cover reactions or comments, things we said on the show, topics we focused on the show, any of those things. In the Spotlight Film Awards submissions, which, again, you can do just by email. We do not do that by Twitter or Facebook. Everything else you can do by Twitter and Facebook as well, but Film Awards stuff just by email. So, again, keep all this in mind. you can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And please remember to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411 or hashtag ITS5, as represents our 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and make sure you like our fan page upon finding it. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially as it relates to scheduling. You know, now tomorrow is the last episode of our Football Blitz, but you know, and I always say that's, you know, football, especially with the Football Blitz show, scheduling can always change, but that can happen even on our primetime show. So you want to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially as it relates to scheduling, but any kind of thing. We might post opinions sometimes, different things like that. So make sure you follow us and on Twitter and Facebook so you can keep up with us. If you'd like to catch up on our show, you have a couple options here. If you're more of the streaming, you know, kind of fan here, where you like what we do on Google Hangouts and YouTube, well, then you can catch up on any of our episodes since we debuted here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube way back in October. So any episodes from now through October, back through October, including tonight's episode, you can catch up on here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. To search for In the Spotlight 411. You'll have access to our channels on both sites, both Google Hangouts and YouTube, and have access to all the episodes we broadcasted and streamed here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube since October. So you can catch up on those recent episodes on here, Hangouts and YouTube. If you're somebody that prefers audio format of podcasting, you want to check us out on a new host site, Podbean, or also on iTunes, where you can also not only access recent episodes, including tonight's, including all the episodes from Hangouts and YouTube that we've done since October, but also you can access episodes from before that, from back on our days on Blog Talk Radio, TalkShoe, Libsyn, you know, those years when we were in the spotlight with Brian Garner. You can access all those episodes. So maybe you're a longtime fan that wants to check out those old episodes, or maybe you're a new fan that wants to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do. You can check out those episodes as well. So search for In the Spotlight 411 on Podbean to access both recent, current, and old episodes. It's all under In the Spotlight 411, including the old In the Spotlight with Brian Garner episodes. And then on iTunes, for recent episodes, all episodes since October, on iTunes, search for In the Spotlight 411. And for episodes from before that, from the previous 5 years of our show, search for In the Spotlight with Brian Garner, and you will find those episodes on there. We're hopefully going to try to consolidate that to make that easier. We're working on that. And again, please do note that on Podbean and iTunes, there are a couple things still transferring. Hopefully by next week that will be done. There's a couple little things still going on technically speaking, but those will hopefully be worked out. I think little by little each day gets better, so don't worry. But we're getting there. So again, you know, for audio, Podbean, and iTunes, for streaming and broadcasting, and for our more recent episodes since October, especially if you're interested in streaming and broadcasting, you want check us out on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, and then obviously audio format on Podbean and iTunes. And of course, you can have access to all of our older episodes from the last 5 years also on Podbean and on iTunes. So keep all that in mind. As always, I'd like to thank Mike for being here tonight. Thank you, Mike.
It's bedtime now.
It's bedtime.
Yeah.
Well, I thank myself for another great show. Pat myself on my back, and thank all of you for your continued support.
You didn't even make it to your back.
I didn't. I know. I'm failing.
You're like, I'm going to pat my shoulder. It's close enough.
Pat my back.
Brian, you can't do it. All right, fair.
You know what's funny? I think you're more awake tonight for some reason, because I don't think I've people. You're not the first person that's told me. Apparently, I haven't touched my back in like at least 3 months.
Brian, I've been pointing. I've actually been talking all night about this. Your hands. It's like you're a T-Rex. It's like your hands can't reach certain lengths and size. It's adorable. So when you're patting yourself on the back, it's like, I can't reach it, but there he's there. Come on, Brian. You have a wingspan. You have long arms.
Oh, that's true.
You should stretch a little bit and pat yourself on the back. You need to do warm-ups or something. Good Lord. Do a couple. There
you go. Here we go.
Oh, maybe doing the T-Rex is a little bit good.
I can't help it. I'm not as active as Jeff Tech was during the show, so I don't,
Uh,
Anyway, I want to thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that listen to us in archive on Podbean or iTunes, thank you. To those that watch us in archive later, thank you as well. We appreciate those that listen live, archive, whatever. All of our fans, we thank you so much. We appreciate that. Again, we have one more show. And for the last time for this season, our last Football Blitz show tomorrow, 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. The last in the Spotlight Football Blitz show tomorrow, 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. That is our third and final show of this week. We'll look back at championship weekend, look ahead to the Super Bowl, make some early predictions, all that stuff. It won't be a long show because there ain't a lot to do, but we'll get into all that. And again, we'll do a little bit more with the Super Bowl on Tuesday, a little bit more of a preview, and then obviously the fallout we'll pick up on the following Tuesday show. So yeah, keep that in mind. Next week we'll be back. We'll only have 2 shows. We're back to some a little bit of our normal format. Tuesday sports, Thursday entertainment. We'll be doing something else on Thursday too, as I mentioned. I'll announce that on Tuesday, and then Tuesday, of course, our usual sports and wrestling stuff. We'll do talk about Monday Night Raw, all that good stuff. Maybe a couple more injuries to WWE. Apparently, Sheamus is hurt, and somebody else might be too. We'll talk about that, assuming there's any news there. We might know the Undertaker's opponent. We'll talk about that on Tuesday as well.
Oh God, I hope it's not who you said it was.
And we'll do some things with that. We'll talk wrestling, all that kind of stuff. And then of course, sports wise, we'll bring back the Bracket Bugle on Tuesday. Lots of good stuff on Tuesday and Thursday. We'll have entertainment, box office beat, all that stuff. And then again, we'll be doing something special. I'll tell you about that on Tuesday. So that's what's coming up next week. But again, tomorrow, the last football blitz of the football season. Tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Give or take, and that is our final show of this week. And then of course next week we'll be back for our primetime shows on Tuesday and Thursday of next week, broadcasting and streaming live on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time next week. So until tomorrow for our final Football Blitz show of the season, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Hangouts and YouTube at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, I hope you have a great night and a great Friday. We'll see you back here on Hangouts and YouTube for the In the Spotlight Football Blitz tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, have a good night, everybody.